Good evening, everybody. My name is Gareth Davis. I'm the Democratic Scrutiny Officer for tonight. So I'll start the meeting. So I just remind everybody that the meeting is being recorded and the archived and recording archived for future viewing. Could I just remind everybody to use the chat function. If there's anything, technical issues they have, just please put that in the chat function. We'll try and pick it up. And I'll go straight on to the agenda. And can I have nominations for the position of chair, please? Councillor Hooper.
I'd like to nominate Gareth Chapman, please.
Thank you. Do we can I have a second of that, please? Okay, Nigel?
Yeah, happy to second.
Excellent, thank you. And can I ask for any other nominations? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so if I can hand over to Gareth to congratulations on being elected chair, and I'll hand over the meeting to you, Gareth. Thank you. Hello, Gareth. Are you there, please? Come on screen. You can take over the meeting. Okay, we'll just wait a minute. I can see Gareth has just left, but he is due to rejoin, I believe. Hello, Gareth. If you press the request to speak button, I should bring you on screen.
Sorry, Gareth. I dropped out. So we're just going to get another device as well. So if I drop out on here, then obviously the vice chair can take over. But my apologies. And
I'll hand over to you, Gareth. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks to committee for again appointing me for another year as chair. Item 2 on the agenda then is the appointment of the vice chair. Any nominations, please?
Councillor Hooper is hands up, chair.
Thank you.
I'd like to nominate Nigel Ireland to continue as vice chair, please.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. We've got a nomination. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Prothero?
Yeah, I'm Matthew Evans. Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Prothero?
Please do, yes. Seconding that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other nominations? No? Okay, so put it to the vote that Nigel Ireland be the vice chair. Anyone against? That's easiest. No, thank you. That's carried. Well done, Nigel, for another year. Greatly appreciated. Carry on to the agenda then. Item 3 is the apologies for absence. We've had Councillor Good-Johns already. Do we have anyone else?
That's it, Chair. Just going to say Councillor Good-John is the only apology given to me in advance. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And it was rather remiss of me, and I do apologise. Welcome to Councillor Ball for being joining as a member of the committee. Good to see you with us. So hopefully be able to make some contribution. Greatly to see that you're here with us. Item 4 on the agenda then is the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of March 2025, correctness only. Someone prepared to move, please?
Councillor Hooper has moved the minutes, Chair.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Nigel, thank you. Anyone against? Nope, thank you very much. Item 5 on the agenda is the declaration of interest. Do we have any declarations of any interest? Nope, thank you. Item 6 is the corporate concerns and complaints policy review, which went to Cabinet on the 5th of June 2025. Tony, are you taking this or is... Yes, Tony.
Yes, please, Gareth. Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So just to kind of introduce the report, the purpose of the Council's corporate concerns and complaints policy is to ensure a fair and consistent experience for our residents when raising concerns and complaints. And since 2013, the Council has followed the Welsh Government's model concerns and complaints policy. So we have a two-stage policy, a two-stage investigation process, I should say. And then if the resident isn't satisfied at that stage, they have the ability to refer the complaint to the Public Service Ombudsman for Wales for consideration. And in 2021, the Ombudsman confirmed that the Council's policy is aligned with the model policy, and therefore a major review of the policy isn't required. However, it is important to regularly review the policy so that we can make sure that we reflect on any lessons learned, make sure the policy includes clear, accurate and relevant information with accurate officer details and contact information, and to demonstrate to our residents that we value their feedback and take complaints seriously. So this report's been brought here because the 2021 Local Government Elections Wales Act places a duty on this committee to review how effectively the Council handles complaints, and obviously having a clear policy is a key element in achieving this. So one of the key issues that's informed this review is a need for greater clarity on when and when not to use the policy for our residents to address a concern. In 2024-25, around 26% of issues raised by the corporate complaints policy weren't appropriate to be addressed under that policy. And this may be because the resident simply wanted to request a service, or because there was another more appropriate route for the concern to be addressed. And of course, this has a potential to result in delays in having the issues and concerns of our residents to be addressed. So the review really focused on improving clarity of the policy. So just very, very briefly, to achieve that greater clarity, we have added a section on complaints about the Welsh language, so clarifying the Council's responsibilities under the Welsh Language Act and the role of the Welsh language officer in investigating complaints about the Council's use of the language. We've also updated the when to use this policy section to highlight topics and issues which have a separate resolution process, so that might be social services complaint reference or issues relating to data protection. We've also added the Ombudsman's definition of what is and isn't a complaint, and included further clarification under that section as well. And of course, ensuring that the complaints process is accessible to all of our residents is critically important. And so we have revised the how can I make a complaint section to include details of the RNID Relay UK service, and to confirm that the policy is available in Welsh, obviously, but other languages as well, and other formats on request. And finally, we've added an appendix to the report, which includes up-to-date contact details on how to report fraud and corruption, concerns with social services, the conduct of councillors, complaints regarding school service provision, and any data protection issues. So we hope that these changes will help to ensure that the policy is easily accessible by all of our residents, and that use of the policy and that appropriate use of the policy, to ensure that the concerns are addressed fairly, consistently, and in a timely way. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Tony. Greatly appreciated. I'm sure there may be some questions. Any questions? Nigel?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one on page 8 of the policy. It refers to learning lessons, and the corporate management team considers a summary of all complaints 6 monthly. Given there were 1,283 in 24-25, and even if you take into consideration the ones that were not appropriate, you've still got 950. My question is 6 monthly sufficient to be able to learn from those sufficiently quickly and act upon them? Just a quick question for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Nigel. Tony?
Yeah, thank you for that. In fact, currently we're taking updates quarterly. And I think the other important thing is 950 roughly complaints last year is a record in terms of numbers of complaints. Highest number we've received since we started to keep records. We are taking quarterly updates to SLT, and SLT are considering areas to address. And importantly, we've made available real-time information to managers specific to their own service via a dashboard, so that managers can, in real time, review the complaints they have coming in, how their service has been affected, and opportunities to improve their service as well. And also in our corporate complaints report, which obviously we bring to this committee, the annual report, we're focusing increasingly on what we've learned from complaints and how we've used that learning to improve services across the council.
Thank you, Tony. Councillor Prothero.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Tony. Going back to the 26% of complaints that were wrongly categorised, whether it's because they sat outside the policy or by definition, I'm just a bit curious, because I'm just thinking, if I was a resident and I think I've got a complaint, I say I've got a complaint, am I going to find out that actually it isn't a complaint when I make it? Or is it for me to understand it's not a complaint? Not quite sure, that's all. So I'm just wondering, in practice, how this is going to work. But thank you.
Yeah, if I can come back in there.
Yep.
So the process is that the resident will make a complaint in whatever channel is most appropriate for them. And then that complaint will be reviewed in the first instance to make sure that it is something that can be addressed through the policy. If it is, that complaint is assigned to the appropriate department to investigate and resolve. If it isn't, because it's a request for service, or it should be for social services complaints, or it needs to go to the information manager, for instance, if it's a data protection issue, we'll let the customer know that that's the case, and then we'll close that complaint down. But the issue isn't forgotten about. It'll just be addressed in a different way, and the customer should always be informed of that as well.
Thank you, Tony. Nigel?
Sorry, I just wanted to come back on my point just to see if whether the policy needs to be changed, because there's a whole load of extra work being done there. I'm not suggesting we want to include everything in there and make sure that continues forever, but is just a statement that it goes 6 monthly to the corporate management team enough in the policy would just be my question as to what, not what are you doing about it, but is the policy sufficient in about what we need to be doing around complaints to make sure we're learning lessons.
Well, that's certainly something we can take away and address. Obviously, SLT has a heavy workload. We are looking at ways in which we can make sure that complaints and kind of learning from complaints is kind of high up on everyone's agenda. But that's certainly something we'll take away and look at and see if we can get a more, make sure that we're taking reports to SLT on a regular enough basis to make a difference.
Thanks, Tony. Are there any other questions? Any comments from anyone? No one showing? Just a few things from me, Tony. I think the policy is well drafted, is well written, apart from obviously a few minor issues that have been picked up by Nigel and others this evening. And I think that's for clarity, really, rather than, of clarity and process. And I think if those can be addressed in some narrative in the policy, in regards to changing the 6 monthly to quarterly, and then having narrative around, look, we will learn from any complaints, as we've been doing, as you've been reporting to this committee on your annual report. I think that sets the scene. I think it's essential that whichever forum members of the public complain through, it is upfront that this is a complaint and this isn't a complaint. And I think people need to understand that. And I think, as you said, they also need to understand some of the complaints won't go through this process. They will need to go through a social services process or an education process or wherever. So it's all up front for a member of the public to see. And secondly, the point Councillor Prothero made is that members of the public get feedback reasonably quickly to say, look, the complaint is going to be dealt with, or it's not going to be dealt with. This is the reason it's not going to be dealt with, or it needs to be referred somewhere else. I think the worst case scenario for a member of the public is it goes into the black hole and no one communicates with them. And I think that's when people get frustrated. So I think, lots of those issues have been addressed in the policy and will be picked up. And I think, we can only continue to monitor it and review it. And I'm sure when you come back with your annual report, you will pick up some of these issues. But I think, it's a very clear and clean policy now for moving the organisation forward. Just to thank you and your team for putting this in place.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, if there are no other comments, then if we go to the recommendations, I think recommendation 1, subject recommendation 2, which is any changes or considerations or views that we should be referred back to Cabinet. I think the only comments and reviews that should be referred back are the drafting issues in regards to picking up the clarity now that these complaints go to the management team on a quarterly basis rather than 6 monthly. So that needs to be regularised in the document. And picking up Nigel's point, if a paragraph or a piece of narrative can be put in the policy that, how the council learns from its the complaints which are relevant and how it looks at dealing with the areas for improvement and improvement in council services. So I think if that could be picked up and referred to Cabinet and subject to that, I think we approve the revised corporate concerns and complaints policy. If someone's prepared to move, please. Thank you, Nigel. Do I have a seconder?
Councillor Hooper, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Hooper and Councillor Prothero. Thank you very much. Anyone against? No, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the corporate risk Q4 update. Tom?
Sorry, Chair, we've got Helen. Tom's not with us tonight.
Oh,
but Helen
apologies.
yeah.
Yes. Tom's being Mr. President tonight, I think, isn't he? So
Maybe.
So Helen.
Helen's in the chamber, yeah.
My apologies, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the Q4 report on corporate risks. The committee will be aware that in the course of the year we reviewed the risk register and we now have 12 corporate risks, and we've also revised the risk strategy as well. So within the report we've got details of the updates against those risks and also the direction of travel. So for those 12 risks, we've got 1 risk which is scoring very high, 4 which are scoring high, 5 scoring medium to high, and 2 risks which are scoring medium. And the committee are asked to note the position of those risks at the end of Q4 and refer any comments to Cabinet, and also to consider the responses to the report at Q3 as well, which is attached at Appendix B to the comments from this committee. The comments that this committee previously made were with regard to the financial resources risk and consideration and review of that with regard to the Chancellor's Spring Statement, review of the delivery of major regeneration projects risk, and also to consider whether the risks around additional learning needs should be considered as a task and finish group in the work programme for the relevant scrutiny committee. As you'll see, all of those things have been considered. The financial resources risk it's been amended, but the score hasn't changed. The delivery of major projects risk has had an increased risk as a result of that reconsideration. And as I say, the task and finish suggestion is being looked at as part of that consideration of the programme of task and finish work. Annex A details the table, providing the detail in terms of the direction, travel and scoring of each of the 12 risks, and also provides an overview of each of those 12 risks as well. And with regard to that, you'll see that there are 4 risks on the register that have been forecast to increase over time. That's the information and cybersecurity risk, climate change and nature emergency risk, social care demand and capacity, and also the physical assets risk. So those are the 4 that, as I say, are looking, although they scoring may not have changed within this quarter, we're aware that those are ones that may over time now be changing. And within the report, we've detailed the reasons for that. And as I say, then we've also, you'll see within Appendix A that detail in terms of all that scoring. What we've also included within the report here is the detail of the internal audit review that was undertaken around the corporate risk management arrangements and the risk register. A substantial audit opinion was issued on the arrangements following the review of that, and that the new policy clearly defines the roles, and it's felt that oversight and governance at both the corporate level and individual risk level was in place, and that there was evidence of challenge from this committee and that was being responded to as well. So that's the detail of the risks. As I say, each of those risks has an overview in terms of its direction of travel and the current position within Annex A. And just then if there's any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Helen. Thank you for the update. And I think we just need to remind members this is for the last quarter, so up until March 2025. And obviously we'll get the new ones at our next meeting. But are there any questions?
Councillor Hooper would like to speak, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Helen. 2 things, just points I want to make. One is in relation to what very high means and the words that are associated with it. And they haven't been spoken yet. So if you go back to a very high level, the possible impact of and magnitude of risk is very high. And the likelihood of it occurring is almost certain. It's considered catastrophic. And the reason the language is there, I presume, for a reason. The language should be spoken because this is a public meeting and the public should be aware that this council and this committee assess that. And I'm just wondering why we don't use that language, because if it's a fear of being honest with the public, I think that's a mistake. So that's a question I'd like to pose, Helen, if you don't mind. The second point I'd like to make, and this is foresight is a great thing, and taking your point, Chair, about we're going to get a new version of this. In this, we've got delivery of major regeneration projects. We now know that ABP have pulled out of the Marina project. I've been, for the past 3 years, been concerned about the viability of this project and consistently told that this was not a major risk to the council. This isn't a wasn't I right about this, but something was inherently wrong with the way we reviewed it. Now, ABP have pulled out, they've referenced financial viability as their concern. Every single marina across Wales has financial viability problems. You have to question why this wasn't considered by this council and it wasn't raised as a more concerning risk throughout this. So we can have our day in the sun at the next meeting when we look at this risk register. And but this, talking to this one, this was forecast direction of travel was staying as it is. Well, that's so wrong. We've just got it wrong. And I don't know whether, when we've discussed it, whether actually the officer in charge is knows what's going on, frankly. And if you're looking at it from the outside, I think it's a real omission. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Helen?
Thank you for those questions. With regard to the query relating to the language that's used within the report and how that maybe that can be improved so it's clearer for the public and other readers in terms of what some of the that means, I think we can look to enhance the report to make sure that that is clear. It is detailed obviously in the risk strategy, but I appreciate that that is not necessarily something that people will be referring back to. So I think we can take a look in terms of how we're reporting that to make sure that it is clearer and more accessible in terms of that understanding of that full impact in terms terms of what we're talking about when we're talking the difference between the sort of the high and the mediums. With regard to the issue of the major regeneration project, as I say, that has been reviewed. We are expecting that we bring the next report to you, that again, the implications from the changes with the ABP will be included within that. This was a risk that came into the risk register when we reviewed the risks last year. It wasn't previously a risk. So I think, as we can see there, in terms of that work, we'll make sure that that is taken into account and that is picked up within the next report and the consideration of that risk. So I'll pass those comments on to the relevant officer. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Councillor Hooper, did you want to come back?
Yeah, do you mind if I do? Helen, the point I was... Thank you, Chair. The point I was making, the language is there. The point I'm making is that we're not making use of that language in this meeting. You didn't make use of it. I think it's appropriate language to use because people understand the catastrophic is really, really, really bad. And we can't, and flowering it around, I think, and I'm not suggesting you've done that tonight, but the language is there to be used and should have been used because we spend too often in this council talking about things that are, I think, spend too much time patting ourselves on the back when we should actually be putting these things in the public domain as well. So I wanted to use the language on the public record, and I would encourage other people to have done the same. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hooper. Nigel?
Thank you, Chair. Mine's along a similar vein, just talking about the control scoring methodology, in particular in relation to two risks, the information cybersecurity risk and the transition from the Welsh Community Care Information System risk, both of which have effectiveness of control scores of 4, which is noted as very high control of the risk, yet the residual risk score is only coming down for the information security one from 12 to 9 and 16 to 9. And I think I'd just like some clarification over how those sort of scores of 4 for the control framework come about. How is that sort of measured? And in particular, if they are very high control, very highly controlled risks, how is that not being translated into the risk scoring? And it's just about really understanding, as Councillor Hooper said there, it's about understanding the language. What does it mean? How does it flow through? And essentially, how worried do we need to be in terms of these risks and making sure that they're measured enough? So I don't know whether there's any clarification that can be provided today around that, or whether that's something perhaps to be included in a future paper. But I agree with Councillor Hooper's points. This is a really key document in terms of understanding what as a committee we should be looking for, where we should be seeking assurance from, what the public should be worried about. And I think getting that language right is really important to make sure it is clear to people what we can and cannot deliver. Thank you.
Thanks, Nigel.
Chair, sorry to interject. I think I just want to say, from my perspective, we've had that query a few times. I'm just wondering whether we should have a training session for members. That's just want to put that out there because I think this does get raised quite often. I think members perhaps need a bit of clarity. So I'll leave that out there,
Yeah,
Chair.
I think that would be useful. But I also think, as Councillor Hooper said, we're in a public meeting here and these issues are in the public domain. And obviously people need to understand, both from elected representatives, but also the members of the public, the consequences of some of these issues. So I think if Gareth could take it back to to Tom maybe and his team to look at some training, but also as Nigel has picked up, and I think Councillor Hooper will be picking up, is that we have a full and frank report next time in regards to these issues.
Yes, certainly, Chair. I'll take that back to Tom.
Okay. I didn't know whether Helen wanted to come back to Nigel.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think those are interesting points for us that we can pick up, I think, as you say, in terms of how we're presenting the reports to this committee to make sure that there's more clarity around those effectiveness of controls in terms of the detail and the impact that is having on the scoring. And as Gareth has said, in terms of this being something that has been raised before, I think we can look to see how we can have a further conversation with members of the committee around that and have a good debate on that. So, yeah, we'll take those points back. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions?
Matthew Evans, Chair.
Matthew?
Thank you, Chair. Rather specific one, sorry, for me on information security. There's information in the pack around impacts or recent attacks on councils and that sort of thing. There's obviously been a lot in the media around attacks on Marks and Spencers and others, social engineering, third-party weaknesses. Is that something that's within this assessment? Or is that something that's still coming? I guess I just want some comfort that the council's thinking along those lines.
Sorry. Yes, certainly it is. And I think the head of digital is very aware in terms of the attacks that have happened on other organisations, the impact on other local authorities where there have been attacks on that, and in terms of briefing SLT and other officers in terms of the implications and the safeguards that we all need to be put in place, as well as the work of the digital team, as well in terms of managing that risk. So I think, again, that is one that I'm very conscious of in terms of the world that we live in and those attacks, and very much the long-term implications of those very much on the organisation as a whole and on services. So yes, all of those things are taken into account and very much seen as a organisational issue for us to consider.
Any other questions? No, any comments? Just a couple of comments then from me. I think Councillor Hooper picked up why I said we needed to make until next month in regards to, to our next meeting in regards to the next quarter. Given the public press around the Barry Marina and APB, I was almost sure that that was going to be raised as an issue this evening. And obviously it does need to be taken into account and a full report come before us, given the major regeneration projects. But there was also a second issue I think we need to address in regards to public information, is that of the Aberthaw power station site and the city deal and the claim that has now been made against the CJC amounting to £5.7 million. Doesn't say whether that's subject to costs or anything else like that. But that again is a huge impact on the city deal. And whilst I note that there was a very short briefing paper came out to each of the constituent authorities, is my understanding, I think it would be worthwhile, if people haven't seen it, we ought to see it. It is subject to an investigation, which is ongoing by the city deal. Obviously, governance and audit in city deal will deal with it, but I think it's a natural consequence, really, that each of the constituent authorities should see it, because obviously we're the funding mechanism for the CJC. And whilst the chief exec of the CJC says, well, no one will lose any money because it'll come out of the interest that's earned on the capital they've got, well, it will have an impact because that's £5.7 million. It can't be used for something else. And the other statement that there is no funding in place to take Aberthaw site forward in any event is also concerning. So I think it's worthwhile watching that, because again, whilst it's not got a direct relationship for major regeneration within the council, it does affect us financially. And number two in the risk register is financial sustainability. And the final point I just want to pick up is I was looking as well at the some of the delegated decisions being made, and there are some contracts in regards to premises and bringing forward premises where I've noted that the original contract price was one figure, and the contract price at the end of the contract has actually doubled. So I think, in regards to financial sustainability and that, we may need just to keep a weathered eye on those issues going forward. I think everyone understands that contracts to have unforeseen works, but for a contract to start out at one figure and then double, and we've had experience of that before in regards to contracts, we do need to keep a weathered eye on that. So I certainly await the report for the next committee, Q1, and hopefully some of these issues will be addressed. Any other comments? Okay, the recommendations are that I think we note the responses, the Cabinet resolutions following the consideration of the Governance and Audit Committee's referred comments at Appendix B. Obviously, that is a step change. At least we're having the comments back now in written format. We note Q4 position of the corporate risks outlined in Risk Summary Report Annex E. And I think if Gareth can refer these issues in regards to certainly the major regeneration projects, the city deal and maybe contract overruns and overspends to Cabinet, and hopefully we can get some response back on that. Someone prepared to move, please?
Councillor Hooper, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Nigel. Anyone against? No, thank you. Item 8 on the agenda is Vale Little Morgan Council Set-in Wellbeing Objectives Examination. Samantha, you taking us?
Thank you, Chair.
And you're in the chamber and I'm missing you.
I'm actually in the chamber. Yeah, so just to say, this is the first of 4 Audit Wales reports, so please bear with us. And I will assume that members have already had a chance to read the report, so I will simply briefly summarise some of the key elements. So as part of the Auditor General for Wales's Wellbeing duty, we undertook this assessment looking at how well the Council acted in accordance with the Sustainable Development Principle when setting its wellbeing objectives. And I know everybody will be familiar with those wellbeing objectives as illustrated in the 25-30 corporate plan. The review formed part of a rolling programme of examinations where we have looked at all 56 public bodies falling under the Act, and this programme terminated earlier this year. And just to say that this council was actually the last in that programme in terms of the last local authority to be looked at. That programme culminated in our recently published national report. And then in terms of our approach, we carried out the examination in real time. This allowed us to observe key parts of the process. And just to say that officers were very helpful during the process. Ongoing, providing us with evidence, sometimes as it was actually being produced. And then in a similar vein, we were then able to provide feedback in terms of what we were looking for whenever possible during the process. So overall, we found that the Council has applied the Sustainable Development Principle to shape the setting of its wellbeing objectives. And in terms of some of the particular positives that we mention in our evaluative heading, the Council had effective use of data, integration and alignment between its corporate plan and its medium-term financial plan. And in particular, I suppose I'm making reference there to the reshaping programme being the key delivery mechanism for that, and a strong approach to involvement. I know that the Council has engaged a lot with its residents and communities over the last couple of years. We also noted the time and resource given to the process, and that for us really did indicate a commitment to apply the principle, reflecting in the considered timing also of the performance panel assessment and the broader refresh of the strategic policy framework. And again, that was to support the new corporate plan. And then finally, just to say, after moderating the report, compared to all others that have gone before in our rolling programme, our Wellbeing of Future Generations Manager, on balance, considered that there should be no recommendations. And this was because those minor areas where we thought there was scope for improvement, we found that the council had already made plans, adequate plans to address them. So that's all I was proposing to say. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Just before questions, I just say it's a really positive report for the council, and it's one of a very few that I've ever seen with no recommendations whatsoever. So I think, certainly the council are getting it right and have got it right, but can't be complacent. And I know that they'll continue to work on them as we go through the years. So a very positive report. Questions? Any questions? No questions? Any comments?
Councillor Hooper, Chair.
Councillor Hooper?
Just following on from your points, Chair, as well, I think this is a positive report. This is probably not for the auditors now, this is more for the council, the points I'm making, and more generally. I think that it's great to see a report like this, but I think there's still a disconnect between this work and the lived experience of people in the Vale. And I think what we've got to do is be careful of not to think that we're solving some of these issues when we frankly aren't, especially for the people who are most vulnerable. So I just want to, I'm really pleased with the report. This isn't, I'm trying not to be negative, I'm trying to find some way of how do we move this thing forward rather than leave it where it is. And I think we do have to make sure that this is put into real people's lived experiences, not just this is the wrong word, but it's the only what's come to my mind. There's a highfalutenness to this that we've got to be really careful about. But it's a good report. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hooper. Any other comments? No, we've got the recommendations then, and I think the recommendation is we note the findings from the Audit Wales examination of extent of the council application of sustainable development principle in setting its wellbeing objectives, and secondly, that the report be referred to Cabinet for their oversight. Someone prepared to move, please?
Councillor Hooper, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Seconded, Nigel. Thank you. Anyone against? Nope. Thank you very much. Next one is the Vale Little Morgan Annual Audit Summary 2024. Sam?
Thanks, Chair. I'm gonna pick this one up.
Sorry, Mark.
Hi. Yeah, just for members who I haven't met, and officers, one or two officers. I'm Mark Jones, the Audit Manager for Financial Audit. So I'm replacing Steve Wyndham, who I'm sure you're all familiar with. After a certain amount of years as external auditors, we need to rotate away from an audit and be replaced. And so this was part of a natural rotation of auditors at that particular level. And great to meet some new faces. I've probably been on this audit now about 2, maybe 3 months so far. In terms of the annual audit summary, it's a relatively short document that we're required to do each year. This summary does go on our website once it goes through due process at the local government body. It has some statistics in there you would have noted, which draw from Stats Wales, which is held within Welsh Government. So there are stats, those stats that go in there each year for information and for the reader. And then it breaks down into financial audit and performance audit. In terms of the financial audit, it mainly comments on your main annual accounts that came through this committee in November and was certified in early December. There are other elements of financial audit that you're all familiar with, and we probably get into the detail of that a bit more in the next paper, the update paper, where I can give more of an update beyond the papers in terms of progress there. So I won't say anything further on financial audit in this paper, but I will pass to Sam in terms of the performance audit.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Chair. I think in a very similar vein, there will be some repetition between this report and I think it's our next item. So I will be very quick. So basically, we mention our assurance and risk assessment, and this is an ongoing exercise. and it culminated in a meeting with senior leadership team earlier this year, and that was used to inform our future risk-based work programme and the development of it. And then in terms of the summary evaluative headings that we've included, I just want to say that 2 of those reports have been presented to this committee. They are the financial sustainability and obviously just the setting of wellbeing objectives. But just to say that the review of the thematic review actually of commissioning, that I'm intending will be presented at the next audit committee. And then the other report on unscheduled care, I need to speak to officers about which committee that should be presented to. But again, that is in the offing and due to happen. And just to say really that we have provided links to all the reports just for ease of reference. And then there's a list of national reports that have been published just in the last year. And then there is a very brief summary of the work that we planned to do. And I think we've delivered most of it now for 24-25. So basically, this is a repository of all of the work that we've completed within 24-25. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, are there any questions?
Councillor Hooper, Chair.
Councillor Hooper?
Thank you, Chair. Just on the financial audit, we've consistently talked about, Gareth actually talked about City Deal earlier today. We had the City Deal come and talk to us about their accounts and their accounts being late. And we obviously sign off our accounts with those City Deal figures consolidated in there, but them being estimates. Can you give us any indication as to whether or not they're going to be fitting into our timeline into the future, or are we always going to expect them to be estimated figures? I appreciate that at this level, they're probably not, the figures aren't that big for our, in terms of our accounts, but still we'd really, given that some of these things are quite politically sensitive, it'd be useful to know.
I've got Matt showing. Matt?
Mark?
Matt Power?
Oh, sorry.
Hiya. I thought I'd just give a brief heads up. We're currently in the same position as the other constituent councils, albeit one has already submitted their draft accounts already, the deadline being the 30th of June with Audit Wales. But at this stage, we don't have their draft accounts. So we're talking to colleagues at Audit Wales and also in the other authorities about how to present our accounts at this stage. So we're a bit 11th hour again. I suspect things will work through during the course of the audit. So we're just working through the best approach for the moment.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, the one word in there, that's when you said, is it always going to be this way? And that's certainly not the intention. I'm not involved in the audit personally, but Audit Wales does audit the city, as I'm sure you know. I understand there's been, some recruitment and changes at the City Deal that will hopefully, bear fruit. But it's going to be the same this year, clearly, which is probably reasonably well known. Just kind of speaking to the audit team within Audit Wales and so forth. In terms of timeline, I couldn't, I wouldn't have a view on that today for the City Deal accounts. They will year on year, highly likely they'll become more significant and more material, and that can start to cause a big problem to all 10 councils affected. The more material and significant it becomes, that's highly likely, I would have thought, if things would grow, projects would grow, etc. But yeah, it's the last few years. This isn't the only council I audit. In the last few years, it has been those estimated figures going in those authority accounts. But in terms of the word always, absolutely not. It has to change. It has to get better. There's the new standard on group accounts that's referred to in our audit plan, that international standard on auditing, ISAs. There's a new one that came out in September 2022 as referenced in the audit plan, but it's effective for 24-25, so that's going to start kicking in more. That changes the way the external auditor goes around some of these considerations. So I can't, provide any insight beyond that today at this committee.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions?
Sorry, Chair, can I just come back with a comment on, appreciate your points on there. I don't share your optimism that this will be sorted. And I think this the sort of thing that causes real concern to people. Again, we're trying to interrogate these things on behalf of the public. And the public see things like this with the accounts not being done. And we had a presentation where we were told that things were very, very complicated. And yet nobody could actually talk about what that complexity actually entailed. So I'm worried. I want to say this on the record again. This is something that we've been consistent about for the past 3 years. And it's the sort of thing that ultimately causes, makes it very easy for those people who want to talk about how they save money in the public sphere, oftentimes in a way that is alarmist and deliberately disruptive. This is the sort of thing that is like it's easy for them to pick on. So unless we sort this stuff out, so it's not a challenge to you, Mark. It's a challenge to the city deal. This just looks bad, and it concerns me. So I just get I talk about the chair knows I talk about this again and again and again and again, and nothing ever gets resolved.
Are there any other questions? Are there any comments? I think I would like to comment on the points that just be made about the city deal. I think, as you say, Mark, it just can't go on and on and on. And as the time comes forward, as it is again this year to 30th of June to get the final accounts, draft accounts ready, it was a month later last year, we're still in a position whereby City Deal or CJC or whatever we're going to call it, haven't done their draft accounts. And I think the point Councillor Hooper makes is it doesn't affect just one council, it affects 10 councils. And I think the only comment I'd make is that I think we, in the recommendation, we express our concern to Cabinet that the CJC accounts, again, are not ready to be audited within the timescale, and they will be estimated again in our accounts going forward. But I think I'd be guided here by Matt, whether we write to the Auditor General and express our concern there to say this just cannot go on. What we can't have is one authority or authorities be governed by a very specific timetable, and the CJC, do it as and when they can. And, we've all got issues around capacity. Audit Wales had it the year before last in regards to dealing with the statement of accounts. Lots of authorities have got it, but they aim as best they can to get them in, and they don't normally miss the timescale by very much. Symptomatic in CJC that they miss the timescale all the time, and in some respects, I'm with Councillor Hooper. It's a bit like Welsh Government. Tell us which year you're going to get this in on time. So I think we need to express our concern to Cabinet, and for it to be picked up at the CJC board where our elected representatives sit. And I think we write a letter to the Auditor General and also express our concerns in regards to the failure of CJC in meeting the deadline to submit their draft statement of accounts. I'll just be guided whether we can do that, but I think we just need to put it, as Councillor says, on the record that we're not letting these things float or drift. Gareth?
Yeah, Chair, just come back there. So obviously the reference to Cabinet is obviously acceptable, Chair. And it's normal practice, Chair, for the Chair of the committee to write on behalf of the committee. So, and I'm happy for us to have a dialogue, Chair, and we can draft something, and then we'll send in your name. We'll obviously go on behalf of the committee. That's okay.
No, that's okay. I'm happy with that. I think, we just need to put a marker down, as, we've done so previously, but we do need now to put a marker down to say, I'm not saying enough's enough, but, it does have, they've been in, the Cardiff Capital Region been in place for, I don't know how many years, 6, 7 years. They've got their new structure, which I think came in, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. So, we can't have the same issues time and time again.
Just to say, Councillor Hooper would like to come back on that point, Chair.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Chair. We've just been, I wonder whether it'd be worthwhile, I don't know whether you know any other chairs of governance and audit committees of any other councils, but whether or not we consider seeing if we write a joint letter from those chairs. If this is a concern for others, perhaps it would have more weight to go to the Auditor General in that regard, if you know any.
That's a bit of a leading question, really, isn't it? Because I think people know I chair 2 other authorities in South East Wales that belong to the CJC, and I raise the same issues time and time again. I'm happy, subject to my committee agreeing, to do that. The only problem is it's going to be a couple of months because we've got to wait for the cycle. I think it may be worthwhile me writing to the other chairs and make that suggestion and see what comes back. Maybe if you leave that with Gareth and I, because it's something that I'm happy to do, and we see where we go with it. Matt.
I'm naturally happy to work with the 2 of you on drafting that.
Yeah, I think, Matt, you can also raise it within your 151 group, I'm sure. And I would hope that what we understand, if there is difficulty in CJC, but they've recruited. Liam's now been in place, whatever it is, 6-9 months. Chris Bradshaw was there previously as the 151. So, whilst they've had turnover, they've had a 151 in place for the whole duration. So I think, if you could raise it in your 151 group, I'll write on behalf of the Vale to the Auditor General, and then, whatever we can do, if Cabinet can raise it, because obviously the leader sits on the CJC board, I think. So, it's just to raise that issue that it cannot continue as it is.
Yeah, and I think I did have some confidence in Liam, and certainly since he came into post last autumn, he'd put back in place the regular meetings with the other 151 officers, so we're starting to feel better informed. But I do know from more wide experience, the moment you have a challenge putting your accounts together, and there are councils in this position across Wales, it is difficult to regain the ground. So I understand where they're at, but obviously it's impacting on us and the other 9 councils, and we do need to address that.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Okay, are there any other comments? No, so if we go to the recommendation that I think we note the Vale of Glamorgan's Council's Annual Audit Summary 24, and we refer the issue of the failure to provide the draft statement of accounts of the CJC to Cabinet for them to take forward to the CJC board. And secondly, that I write on behalf of the Governance and Audit Committee of the Vale of Glamorgan Council to the Auditor General, expressing concern of the CJC not meeting, presumably, their statutory timetable for submission of draft accounts. Someone prepared to move, please?
Councillor Hooper, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Hooper. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Nigel. Anyone against? No, thank you very much. The next item is the Q4 Audit Wales Work Programme Update 24-25, Vale Morgan Council.
Thanks.
Mark?
Yep, thanks, Chair. I'll go first on this and then pass to Sam. As I said on the previous paper, there's more to be said in this one on financial audit. And in a simple message, the 23-24 audits are all complete. This particular report, which was 31 March 2025, was saying it says that the flood and coastal grant was ongoing, and the biggest grant we do, which is the housing benefit every year, was ongoing, but those two audits are complete. So 23-24 is complete. 24-25, I believe members are familiar with those audits, the main accounts, the adoption services, the shared services, Welsh Church Act, and then various grants, housing benefit being the biggest every year. So they're in this paper, but I'll pass to Sam first, but happy to take any questions at the end of that.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, so thanks, Mark. So to avoid duplication with the previous item, I will keep this very brief, but just to say that the 23-24 performance work programme is now complete with the presentation of our thematic report on commissioning at the next committee. Then our 24-25 work programme, the final project that is currently underway is that on complaints. So the fieldwork has been completed and we're in the process of collating the evidence. So that's making good progress. And then in addition to that, I just wanted to draw your attention again to the national reports. This is a more up-to-date update from the annual audit summary, but also to signpost to the good practice exchange events. And this particular document does include the recent cost of failure in financial management and governance event. And there's also a link to the presentations from that event and to the podcast. I just wanted to make sure that members were aware of that. That was all for me. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Okay, are there any questions? No questions? Are there any comments? No comments? Okay, so if we go to the recommendations, because I think you said, Sam, the report about, or the national report about unscheduled care will come before us next time, is it?
I believe I've agreed with the Director of Corporate Resources to have a conversation about the best committee, but I'm assuming that it will be the next audit committee in July. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, okay, because I think obviously indication are that has some significant effect on the council in regards to obviously working with health. So yeah, we'll wait that report when it comes forward. So the recommendation is that we note the contents of the report and that the report be referred to Cabinet for their oversight. Someone prepared to move, please?
Councillor Hooper, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Thank you, Nigel, for seconded. Anyone against? No, thank you. Item 11 is the Audit Wales Vale Morgan Audit Plan 25. Mark?
Thanks, Chair. We'll do a double act again, but I'll go first. I think most members, if not all members, will be familiar with the general content of our audit plans, but there's some general information there, important information, timetables, the team, the fees, and then it's kind of, and there's background information in the plan as well, with links to more detail should you wish to kind of click into those links and see more detail on things like audit quality, our responsibilities, etc. And then it comes down to financial audit and performance audit, where we give some commentary on those two strands of work. In terms of the financial audit, we flag some risks and some areas of focus, and there's about 7 or 8 in there in the audit plan that are there, and the work that we intend to do is also in there. And there's probably not that much more to say in terms of the financial audit work. It does. The one thing I will say is the plan makes it clear that this plan does not include the adoption service or the shared services. Those two will be the subject to a separate audit plan each, as in previous years. So when you see audit fees, those two audits are not in those fees, for example. But and one final point on the timetable, we're due to get, as Matt said earlier, we're due to get the draft accounts and working papers week today on the 30th of June, and the Auditor General is looking and aiming per Welsh Government deadlines to certify by the 31st of October. So that's the kind of the timeline this year for those main accounts. I'll pass to Sam at that point.
Thank you, Mark. So in terms of our performance audit work, just to say that we take a risk-based approach in terms of designing our future performance audit work programmes. And we've also fairly recently adopted the International Organisation of Supreme Audit Institutions standards. So just to mention that. Then in terms of the work that we've set out for 2025-26, we plan on reviewing the Council's recently revised scrutiny arrangements. And we have actually started to scope that work. We're also then undertaking a review of arrangements to manage and oversee disabled facilities grants. We are conducting the same review across 10 councils in the South East, and we've already started to collect some data there to help us with the scoping exercise. Then in terms of the thematic review, that is this year on workforce pressures. And I think we've already made contact with officers and produced a project brief, and I think we are ready to go on that. And that's all I wanted to say really in terms of the next iteration of our performance audit work programme. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Sam, for that. Obviously, go to the report. Any questions? No questions?
Yes,
Any comments?
Sorry, Chair, there's a query from Matthew Evans. Okay.
Matthew?
Two questions, if I may. One on the financial audit side and one on the performance side. Mark, you're new on board. Are you expecting any material differences in the way you approach, or any nuances in how you'll approach that audit work from your perspective? And then on the performance stuff, I interested you were talking about a risk-based approach. Could you talk a little bit more about in what risk universe you're operating? Is that a Audit Wales risk universe? How do you look at the corporate risks of Vale Glamorgan Council, and how you come to decide what gets covered by performance audit when? Thank you.
Mark?
Yep. Thanks, Chair. Thanks. Yeah. In terms of the change in audit manager, having worked with the previous manager for many years, we're probably quite similar in how we go about things in that sense. But parking that aspect of it, our audit approach is is very clearly defined in terms of those standards that I was talking about earlier. There's judgment in any audit, so there's people make judgments and kind of decisions, so that's there as well. So there's that subjectivity too, and that's where the fresh pair of eyes come through the rotation. You don't get too comfortable with an audited body, and there's that fresh perspective where we really don't go beyond a certain period of time until we change an auditor, especially at the director, the audit manager, and the audit lead levels. Those three levels. So I don't think officers, I mean, they can speak for themselves in months to come, but I don't think officers would notice a significant difference in how we go about the audit. Our annual audit inspections that are which are detailed in here, and they're external, and we have them across performance audit and financial audit. Things come out of those. We get recommendations. Certain things change for the better. So we pick up recommendations, we change the way we do certain things. Some things we need to do more thoroughly, some things maybe we can ease off to some extent. So there'll always be an element of change, but it won't necessarily always be down to the personnel change, but for other reasons at times.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. So from the performance audit risk perspective, there are lots of different areas that we gain an understanding of risk. So internally, we have engagement team meetings across all disciplines. So we talk to colleagues in financial audit, performance audit. You also see that there are other work programmes within our work programme update. We conduct national studies, local government thematic reviews. So a lot of information from that. We have local knowledge from regular liaison meetings with officers within the council and our local audit work, and we also take into account the external environment that we operate in.
Matthew, you happy with that?
Briefly come back. I guess that is all
Yeah.
good, and maybe I'm looking for an unanswerable question, but I guess if I'm trying to link everything in this committee together, and I think, you know, we've had this discussion with Andrew, and he's done a really good job from an internal audit perspective of showing how the top risks are covered. And I guess I'm looking for some sort of certainty to say, these are the things that really matter to the Vale. Over this year, last year, or the next 5 years, rolling years, this is the coverage that Audit Wales are giving, or this is not the coverage we're giving. This is why we are putting our work or our money in those areas and not other areas. I don't know if I'm articulating myself particularly well, or.
I mean, the one area with the councils is the annual risk assessment and the process throughout the year. So this, I mean, I'm still learning with this council, but you know, the usual process is having that engagement with the chief exec, his executive director team, certain councillors in key positions, head, and so forth, finance committee, GAC, etc. So there's that continuing kind of conversation. The performance auditors are also looking for things where problems are flagged. You know, there's close interactions with Estin and Social Services Inspectorate and so forth. So there's those areas. There's the Auditor General's forward work programme on a national level. That would bring that very much brings the Senedd into play. So that's on the national stuff, where you're doing something across 22 councils. So that's got quite a lot of Senedd engagement. They can't tell the Auditor General what to do or what to look at, but they certainly inform it and give their views. So the PAPAC, you know, the audit committee equivalent in the Senedd, they very much have a view. But that's on the national studies, and some of those national studies are very much council based, for example, as you would have seen over the years yourself. But so it's kind of that officer engagement, but also member engagement and kind of, you know, people around this table, you know, in a GAC environment.
Councillor Hooper, Chair.
Councillor Hooper.
Thanks, Chair. And I just want to link, Sam, one of the points here for the review of scrutiny arrangements with an audit an internal audit that has been pushed back from this year about the review of hybrid arrangements. And link it into if anyone had read the minutes from the last meeting, there were some challenges about the effectiveness of our scrutiny arrangements and whether people actually contribute enough, challenge enough. Sam, you've already referenced, I hope people have read papers, and et cetera, the things you need to do to be an effective scrutineer. So I want to link these things together. We'll talk about it in the internal audit review as well, but just as a point of record, the scrutiny arrangements were all, the changes were, none of them were supported by any opposition councillors or any opposition groups. So this is being done with concern, that we're concerned about these arrangements and whether it's providing effective scrutiny. I'm the only elected member in the chamber today. There's a reason I talk more at these things, is because I'm in front of the chair who's ever doing it. We really need to make sure that these things are working to be effective. So I just want to bring that up. I'm glad that this is being done. I look forward to that, to seeing the results of that audit. And I'm just going to link it into the internal audit perspective as well. I think it's important to understand how that works. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Sam.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say that we also have regular catch-up meetings behind the scenes with internal audit, so we compare notes and our work programmes.
Thank you, Sam. Are there any other questions? No? Any comments? Nope. Okay, I just want to make a quick comment, and I'm sorry to go over again about CJC. But in the audit plan on page 9, it says significant financial statement risks, and it lists out quite a lot of those. And on page 13, South East Wales Corporate Joint Committee is listed regarding its transactions and balances. And obviously it says that they need to be recognised in the accounts of the council. The council will need to decide how to account for these in its financial statements going forward. But it also then says that the SEW transactions and balances are also becoming increasingly complex, and therefore there is a risk of material misstatement in the council's financial statements. So I think the concern that we've expressed, I hope, will reflect what the Auditor General is saying in regards to the Virgil Morgan's audit plan. I'm sure it's been picked up in the 10 other authorities where the Corporate Joint Committee is operating. And I would hope then that, we can bring that forward, because that does concern me, where it says there is a risk of material misstatement in the council's financial statements. Okay, if we then go back to the recommendation is firstly that we note the contents of the report, and secondly that the report be referred to Cabinet for their oversight. Someone prepared to move, please?
Councillor Hooper, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Can I have a second? Thank you, Nigel. Anyone against? Nope. Thank you. Thank you, Sam and Mark, for the reports. Next item is item 12, which is the annual internal audit report 24-25. Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. It's Andrew Wathen, Head of the Regional Internal Audit Service. As the Chair says, this is my annual audit report for 24-25. This is one of the key documents I bring to committee, and it summarises the detailed work that we've undertaken during the year 24-25, the opinions we've issued, recommendations we've made, which conclude into an overall opinion in terms of the governance, risk management and internal control environment across all services audited during 24-25. It's a positive report for 24-25 in that we've achieved 85% of the plan against a target of 80%. The opinions we've issued in terms of positive are 94% are either substantial or reasonable, with only 3 limited opinions. We've also outlined how we've complied with the public sector internal audit standards for 24-25. That accumulates into an overall opinion for the year as a reasonable level of assurance, Chair. The report's attached. I don't intend to go through in detail, but I will cover the salient points if I could. So in terms of referring members to table 2.2, we've issued 53 audit opinions. As I said, 94% either substantial or reasonable, and we've split that over the different types of audits we've undertaken across the services within the organisation. Figure 1 shows that there's a good level of assurance across the board, across all service areas. And what we've also done in this report is put a comparison in for the last 3 financial years. And hopefully members will see that there's been an increase in substantial opinions issued. Reasonable opinions is more or less the same, but there has been a decrease in limited and reassuringly no assurance opinions, which gives me the assurance that there is a good level of governance, internal control and risk management processes in place within the organisation. Of the 3 limited opinions that we've issued, that information has been been brought before committee previously in year, along with a bullet point summary of what our key concerns were. So moving to the 85% completion of the plan in year, that's set out in table 4, which is our paragraph 2.6. Finalised 50 reports, 3 were in draft at year end, and then we've done some non-opinion work as well. It adds up to the 81 jobs in total and 85% of the plan completed. Members will note that there were some jobs which were in progress during the year, so hadn't had an opinion, they were carried forward into 25-26, and there were some jobs which we hadn't started in 24-25. They were considered in terms of the audit planning process and have been included in the 25-26 plan moving forward. The limited opinions, there's a brief summary there, Chair, of why we felt they were limited in terms of non-compliance, and that information has been reported to committee previously, as I said. Reassuringly though, at 3.5, where we have followed up limited assurance opinions in year, we've followed up 12, 10 of which have had a more positive opinion when we've gone back and done a second audit, which gives me the reassurance that the operational managers have implemented the agreed recommendations. 9 were given a reasonable assurance, 1 was given substantial assurance. There were 2 that had a continued consecutive limited assurance, and again that's been brought to committee's attention previously. With regards to recommendations, which is in section 4, overall we've issued 232 recommendations across the opinion audit works which we've issued, and again positive in that the majority are medium or low recommendations, and as a team we will follow up the high and medium recommendations to make best use of our resources to make sure that they are being implemented at an operational level. There's a section on counter frauds, just to say that we are responsible for collating the National Fraud Initiative workload, which is a biannual exercise, and we work very closely with the Corporate Fraud Officer in terms of undertaking the investigations. A separate report on corporate fraud will be brought to committee later in the year. We're always keen to develop and improve the service which we deliver, and section 6 talks about our client satisfaction questionnaires. So at the end of each audit we send out a questionnaire to the auditee. We had a better return rate this year in terms of 50% compared to 46% last year, which is encouraging, and of those returns that we've had a 96% satisfaction rate, and there's a corresponding copy of the questionnaire shown at when the annexes, which I'll come to shortly. So again, encouraging that we are delivering a professional audit service in line with our standards, in line with our expectations. I've just included some comments there from the questionnaires which we've had back. Majority are positive, but I'd welcome positive and negative comments, because we can always learn from the negative comments to help to deliver a better service moving forward. My aim is to deliver a professional high-performing audit team, and we do that because we've got qualified staff on board. We've got 2 graduate auditors undertaking professional qualifications, and we've had 4 members of staff starting their IIA qualifications as well, and have been successful in terms of their first exams. Joan and myself are very keen to support CPD to continue their professional development. Section moves on to public sector internal audit standards, because we needed to comply with those for 24-25 and reporting to committee. So that's just to say we've done that. We continue to do a self-assessment. That audit had a substantial level of assurance this year for 24-25, and the external assessment was undertaken a couple of years ago, again fully conforming. Moving on to future years, I've included a section on global internal audit standards because they came into effect from April 25. Members have had some presentation on this already, so are aware of the key issues. We'll make sure that we are compliant. We were compliant with the previous standards, so I'm pretty confident that we will be compliant with the new standards moving forward. But that's just to give some further information in terms of the what we need to comply with from the 1st of April, as in 25-26 moving forward. The last section just covers a bit of background about the Regional Internal Audit Service and where we aim to go, and how we're always looking to take on additional work where we can. All that concludes into an opinion statement, which is in Appendix A, broken down into risk management, governance arrangements and internal control. For risk management, I've given that a substantial level of assurance based on what Helen said earlier on about our risk management audit. The governance arrangements and internal control have both been given a reasonable assurance, which leads into an overall opinion for 24-25 as a reasonable level of assurance. Just to outline what Annex A is about, it's the list of all audits which we've undertaken which were opinion related, the respective opinion and the number of recommendations which we've made. Annex 2 sets out our progress against the audit plan, and members can see how many jobs we've completed, how many were in progress, how many were not achieved in 24-25, taking on board some comments which were made last year from this committee. Annex 3 sets out the progress of our recommendations which we've made, and again, very positive. The majority have either been implemented or have a future implementation date. And as mentioned already, Annex 4 is just a copy of the client satisfaction questionnaire, so members can see what our auditees are asked to comment on post-audit. At that point, Chair, happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Thank you for preparing this very comprehensive report again for the annual report this year. And we go to questions. Nigel.
And Councillor Hooper after Nigel, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, thanks, Andrew. Thanks for the comprehensive report. I think it clearly lays out how the work you've done over the year and the team's done over the year, and is really clear in communicating that. So thank you for that report. I'm going to be good this time, and I'm going to separate my comments and questions. So just two quick questions for me. Firstly, the internal audit charter later on the agenda talks about the head of internal audit report, annual report, including information on the quality assurance improvement program. I couldn't see anything of that in this report. I just wondered if I'd missed it or if it was covered under another name. And the other thing I just want to check, 6.3 regarding customer satisfaction. Really pleased with the satisfaction rate of 96%. I think that's great. I just wanted to check, is that like an average of all the questions, just as a blanket average with no surveys excluded or anything like that, just to check that calculation? That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the reference to the Quality Assurance Improvement Programme, it's not in the report per se, but there is reference to the self-assessment which we undertake on an annual basis and the external assessments which we had back in 22-23. And that forms part of the Quality Assurance Improvement Programme, and as does the post-audit questionnaires. Fair point, Chair, and we'll look to consider that for next year to further improve the way we communicate that to committee next year. In terms of 6.3, question on the questionnaires, this does include all questionnaires which we've received. As I said, most are positive. It goes into an algorithm, churns out a percentage per question. But we do take into account all negatives as well. One of the questionnaires back was we had a 50% satisfaction rate. Unfortunately, when we delved into that a bit deeper, the auditee wanted us to write the policy for them, and we said that's not our role. Our role is to say you haven't got a policy in place, you need one. Therefore, they gave us a negative comment. The other comment we received back was that negative, so a lower performance rate, but that was because we issued a report on a Friday. So generally, per question, if anything falls below 90%, then that gets referred to Joan and myself, and we'll look into that in a bit more detail, and we'll speak to the auditee if necessary, just to find out what the key issues were in terms of did we do something wrong, could we do something better, how can we improve our relationship moving forward. So hopefully that kind of answers the question.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Hooper?
Given Nigel's reluctance to do comments and questions at the same time, I'm going to hold on for the comments section. I don't want
to. Councillor Proro.
Thanks, Chair. Andrew, can I just focus in on one of our limited assurances, and it's a review of a limited assurance, and it's another limited assurance. And it's really, I just want to understand, seeing as, and I'm talking about the tender evaluation and award, I think it was the project plan and business services, and we had the senior officer who came in last October and talked about mitigation and what they were going to do. But it's June 25. We've still got unlimited assurance and a review of, and it's just a concern of mine. I just don't know, what do we do next? I mean, do we just wait for you to do another review in the future? So that was the first question. The next one really is about how we decided and why we do only part of a procurement exercise. Why do we just review the tender evaluation and award? Why do we leave out the first part, the advertising, the notices, the conflicts assessment, the due diligence bit? Why does that bit not actually get looked at? It just seems a bit strange to me. And yes, it's really good to note that as far as your team is concerned, things have been going really well with more substantial assurances. As you said, you've got professionally qualified staff and you continue to promote CPD, and that is probably why you're doing so well. I can't say for the procurement function because we don't have those professionally qualified staff. It's quite such a good positive picture. But if you could just let us know those two questions, please, I'd be really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. In terms of question 1, tender evaluation and award, specifically in building services, yes, it is a second consecutive limited. This was as at the end of March 25, so 31st of March 25. And the intention would be for us to go and do a second follow-up, which is in our plan for 25-26. That said, a considerable amount of work has been done in that service area. We've been liaising with Ardell, coming to give some specific training to managers in that area, which the head of service promised would be the case when he got invited into the Governance Standing Committee. And we've also had a conversation with the director, who's confident that processes have improved significantly. That next time we go in, we will see a more positive opinion in terms of the control environment that's in place and adherence to the contract procedure rules. So we're almost at the end of June now, so we're planning to do a visit in Q2, and then we'll report back to committee in terms of the update accordingly, Chair. In terms of the second question, normally we would look at the whole process in terms of procurement. Again, it's kind of risk assessed within our audit planning process. This picks up some concerns that we had a few years ago in a particular area, so we felt it was more appropriate to concentrate our audit resources on a particular area moving forward. And as it turned out, it had a limited assurance opinion. So there was a significant impetus for the managers to put things right on the back of our audit report. But generally, when we do a procurement audit, we will look at the start to finish process. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Prothero, are we happy with that response?
Thank you. Yes, I am. But just going back to that limited assurance, I would personally feel that if we had those compliance issues with that part of the process, I would also tend to wonder if notices had been published as they should have been and other parts had been overlooked too. And I wouldn't want there to be a complacency that all that work has been done putting that middle part of the process correct, and nobody's really made sure that the front end, if you see what I mean, has also been resolved, because under the new regulations with procurement, there's an awful lot more that needs to be done at the front. When I talk about the due diligence, conflict assessments, the number of notices, there's quite a few more that also need to be done, and for lower value spend as well. So all of that needs to be picked up, and I just want to make sure that we don't fall foul of it, or we're just complacent about that part of the beginning. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Prothero. I think we wait to see what the middle comes back at, but it may well be that we ask Andrew and his team to go in and look at the whole process from start to finish, given, as you quite rightly say, the new policies and procedures that have been put in place. So I think I tend to agree with you. It's all right getting the middle right, but if you got the front wrong, it's you got some major issues. So let's wait and see what the next audit comes back with, and maybe we get the audit team to revisit and look at the whole process going forward. Okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll come on to comments now, and the reason I think, Councillor Hooper, that Nigel was being very pedantic is that I was very pedantic at one stage, saying we're dealing with questions first and then comments. So, Councillor Hooper, comments.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things. One, I just want to make the point how good it is to see the graduate trainees finishing their exams. I think that's to be welcomed in this committee. It improves the performance. And as somebody who once did those exams, I know how difficult they can be as well. So congratulations. Just a point that maybe the body of the report could benefit from is whether I notice all the recommendations have been agreed by management. It'd be nice to see that as a specific point, unless I've missed it. It's in the table, but I think it deserves a point in the text as well. And then just bringing up that point about hybrid meetings, just making the point that I think it's an important audit to be done next year. If that has any influence, then that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hooper. Nigel?
Just two quick comments from me. One is really pleased to see the rate of returns for the satisfaction surveys increasing from 46 to 50%. Great to see that going up. Obviously, it'd be great to see that improving even more. Probably, obviously, one for management more than for Andrew and the team in terms of getting those responses back, but pleased to see that increasing. And I just wanted to echo Councillor Hooper's comments about the exams, not just because of completing them, but also the different ones that are being done in terms of SIPFA and the IIA ones. I think that gives a good breadth of technical skills and different experiences in the team as well. So I think it's great to see the audit team continuing to evolve and develop. So yeah, just well done to the team.
Thanks, Nigel. Any other comments? No? Okay, we go to the recommendations then. The recommendation is we note the annual internal audit report for 24-25 financial year, including the head of internal audit's annual opinion on the adequacy and effectiveness of the council's framework of governance, risk management and internal control. And I think that we have a second recommendation. Firstly, that we congratulate the audit team for the work they've done during the financial year 24-25, and congratulate those members of the team who are working hard and who have qualified during this financial year, and wish them well in the future. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Nigel. Seconder?
Councillor Hooper, Chair.
Councillor Hooper, thank you very much. Anyone against? No, thank you. Item 13, the Regional Internal Audit Service Charter 25-26.
Thanks, Chair. It's me again. So yeah, this is the annual report which we bring this report to committee on an annual basis, which is the Internal Audit Charter. We normally review reflect on it, review it and update it. But this year is quite key in that there's a change in the standards. So they're changing from the public sector internal audit standards, which members have heard me talk about considerably, moving over to the global internal audit standards with effect from April 25. So the charter has been updated to reflect that significant change in the change of standards. And this is one of the key documents that I can bring to committee to demonstrate your responsibility of having oversight in terms of the internal audit team process and approval of the charter. So the charter has been reviewed to reflect the changes which are in the new standards, and they're also complemented by the CIPFA's application note and code of governance for internal audit. The charter itself is split into 4 sections, which are purpose, authority and responsibility, number 1. Number 2, independence, objectivity. Number 3, proficiency and due professional care. And number 4, quality assurance and improvement programme. So the charter sets out the responsibilities of the team, how we will operate, the relationships we have with our auditees, what they can expect from us, what we can expect from them and key officers within the organisation, how we develop a relationship with the Governance and Audit Committee, yourselves and all its members, and how we comply with the new standards moving forward. One of the additions which I've incorporated in the appendix is just to set out the ethics and professionalism domain to give members an indication of what the team need to comply with in terms of undertaking their audit work during a year. So the key changes are set out in paragraph 2.5. Covered the change in standards already. We have to incorporate a mandate for internal audit. How does it operate? Well, it's under the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2014. There's been an update to key definitions. We've incorporated a reference to anti-fraud strategy in the framework, which was picked up in one of our assessments. We've added a statement around each partner within the Regional Internal Audit Service having a zero tolerance and culture to fraud, bribery and corruption, and added in links to global internal audit standards and CIPFA's documentation as well. So, Chair, at Appendix A of your papers, that sets out the new charter, an updated charter, and in Appendix B, what I've tried to do is show what changes have been made. Again, picking up a point that was made in your committee last year. Rather than track changes, I've colour-coded it, so anything in yellow is something I've removed, and anything in blue is added into the charter. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Yes, thank you for that, Andrew. Thank you for the updated charter. And again, thank you for giving us 2 documents this time, Annex B showing all the amendments and that, and then a clean copy at Appendix A. So thank you very much for that. Any questions? Nigel? And Councillor Luper's next, I should imagine.
Correct.
Nigel?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Andrew, again for this really useful, and with the version that's got the track changes on, it makes it much easier to track. 3 quick questions, if I can, please. First one is in relation to, on page 3, the definition of internal auditing. Under section or point B there, it says the board. And I get that some of that language has come from the global internal audit standards themselves, but I just didn't understand the bit that follows regarding the governance and audit committee, semicolon, authorised to provide the internal audit function. I don't understand what that is getting at. So if you can provide any clarification on whether that perhaps needs to be tweaked in terms of the wording, that would be great, please. Second one is in relation to resources and proficiency, looking at the training for auditors. I know the new standards require 6 monthly ethics training or webinars and things like that. So again, just whether that is worth adding in here, or if you feel it's just captured under training, that's fine. But just something to make sure that requirement is going to be met. And then the third one is just from my experience, which is you've got sort of good detail around the various responsibilities of things like senior management and the internal audit team. I found it quite useful to make it a bit more explicit about staff that you're auditing, or the auditees, and their responsibility for engaging with you, providing information and evidence in a timely manner, that sort of thing. Just whether you felt that might be useful to include. But those are my three. Thank you.
Thanks, Nigel. Andrew?
Okay, thanks, Nigel. In terms of the question one, the board is, that's a definition which has come from the standards itself. Within the veil, the board is referred to as the Governance and Audit Committee, and it's been given appropriate delegation through council, and is in the council's constitution, because the Governance and Audit Committee has the responsibility for overseeing internal audit. So I'll review that and make it clearer next time round, if possible, if you're happy with that. In terms of resources and ethics training, we've incorporated that into training already, and we've organised ethics training for the team, which has come from, or one part of it has come from SIPFA. All the team have now gone through that process, and we'll look to do an alternative provider within the 12 months period as well. In terms of responsibilities of our auditees, fair point, again, we'll review that, Chair, and look to update the charter accordingly.
Thank you, Andrew. Nigel, has that answered your questions?
Yeah, I'm happy for that. I understand that the Governance and Audit Committee is the equivalent of the board as defined by the global internal audit standards. That's fine. It's just the word about providing the internal audit service. I'm not sure the Governance and Audit Committee provides the internal audit service. I'm not quite sure that's right. So again, if it's just me, I'm happy to accept it. But just to make sure that we understand what that bit is trying to say, and that we're not setting ourselves up for being responsible for something that we're not actually responsible.
No.
Thanks, Chair.
No. Thanks, Nigel. Councillor Hooper?
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether you can answer this one, Andrew, in public forum. But last year we lost RCT Council from the partnership, and you did reference that you were having conversations with other councils. I'd just be interested in how those are going. I'm happy to take that. If we can't deal with it now, then I'd have to take it outside.
Thanks. Yeah, we did have some extensive conversations with two other local authorities and their audit teams. Unfortunately, they didn't progress. So one internal audit team decided to stay internal and not become part of a regional service, and the other one put us up against some competition with an external provider, and they felt it was more appropriate at the time for the external provider to deliver their internal audit service. And that report is a public document available on the net.
Any other questions? Any comments? No comments. Okay, we go to the recommendation then that we approve the Regional Internal Audit Service Charter for 25-26 as attached in Appendix A to this report. Someone prepared to move, please?
Councillor Hooper, Chair.
Thank you. And Nigel, thank you. Oh, thank you, Councillor Prothero as well. Thank you. Anyone against? No. Okay, next item 14, Internal Audit Annual Strategy and Risk-Based Plan 25-26. Joan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good evening. I'm Joan Davis, Deputy Head of the Regional Internal Audit Service. The purpose of this report is to provide members of the Governance and Audit Committee with the annual internal audit strategy and risk-based plan for 25-26 for approval. The proposed Regional Internal Audit Service audit strategy is attached to Appendix A. The strategy demonstrates in detail how the Internal Audit Service will be delivered in accordance with our Charter, which is reviewed annually. This includes the methodology used to develop the Internal Audit Annual Plan and the approach taken to undertake audits. The strategy also includes the definition of internal audit as per the Global Internal Audit Standards, the Section 151 Officer Responsibility, and the information to be provided to this committee. The Global Internal Audit Standards require a risk-based audit plan to be produced to cover the Council's overall control environment, including risk, governance and internal controls as far as practical. The proposed annual risk-based plan for 25-26 is at Appendix B. This plan has been compiled having regard to various things such as discussions and information received from chief officers, reviewing the corporate risk register, the corporate plan Vale 2030 and previous audits. It also includes the 5 audits that were ongoing at year end, and after consideration, the 6 audits not started during 24-25 have also been included. The plan provides this committee with an overview of the work to be undertaken, which will offer sufficient coverage to enable the Head of Internal Audit to be able to provide an opinion at the end of 25-26. The proposed annual plan is flexible to allow for changes in circumstances and events that may occur, such as requests to respond to new issues that may emerge during the year. The Governance and Audit Committee will receive updates on how the plan is being progressed and any changes that may be required. Therefore, Appendix B provides the detail of the audit area to be reviewed and a proposed outline scope. There are 44 items listed at Appendix B which will provide an audit opinion. The remaining items are work that will be undertaken by internal audit which will not necessarily provide an audit opinion. That's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Joan. Any questions?
Councillor Hooper, Chair.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you, Chair. Just a question. So and I picked this up before, the hybrid and the reviewed the scrutiny changes that are in there. And I'm just keen. It seems like there's going to be a lot of crossover between those internal laws that you've got mentioned, and I'm also keen just to get your view on the external crossover as well.
For me, yeah. No, this is Joan, sorry.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yes, we've carried them over onto the plan. As you know, the hybrid one was carried forward and the scrutiny one's an additional one. However, I have had conversations with Sam to make sure we complement each other rather than duplicate. So we'll probably deep dive more so and we'll do the timings to make sure that which one goes first and which one would add best value in which order. So we are in dialogue with that.
Nigel?
Hi, Joan. Thank you for that. Yeah, just a quick one. One of the items in the plan is hybrid council meetings. Just wanted to check, does that include other meetings, that not just the council, as in does it include things like this governance and audit committees to cover all the meetings? And also, will you engage with stakeholders? And that brought me to a wider question, which is, do you engage with stakeholders where appropriate in relevant reviews? So, for example, will you be speaking, or will the team be speaking to members and councillors about this, their use of the system and whether it's been working for them, rather than just focusing on it internally? And I'm afraid I have to ask it again, just in terms of this, is there any way that we could get any form of guidance over which of this long list of audits are more certain to be undertaken this year and which are less certain and maybe postponed to a future years? I'm not asking for a prioritised list because I know that that's virtually impossible, but some indication of which ones we think might or might not occur, just so we can get that assurance over, and perhaps feed into which ones we would like to make sure occur if possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. If we take the first one, the first question first regarding the scope of the hybrid meeting, yes, that will be in wider context, and we would consult with stakeholders. We've not scoped out completely, but we have done that in the past. We've done it via questionnaires, face-to-face meetings, etc. So definitely that would be built into the scope. And when we do that, we'll let you know. As in connection with the second question to do with the long lists and how the plan is going to be progressed. The plan you've got before you is the plan based on our audit team and what we would hope to achieve. Obviously, our target is 80%, but in an ideal world, we'd like to complete 100%. They're not in any particular priority order at all, and as I said, we'd like to do them all. Unfortunately, it is difficult to say at this stage what ones we would do and not do. There's lots of variables at play here. There's availability of the auditees, the timeliness. If Audit Wales are doing something, sometimes we have to drop back or we go first and they go second. Schools close during the summer holidays, so we have to be mindful of that. We've also got to be mindful of our own team and their strengths and when they're available, because obviously they take annual leave as well. So at this stage, ideally, we would like to do them all. They're all taken in equal importance. As we go through, we do provide you with a progress against the plan report. That will show you then the progress that's being made. And at that stage, if we've got more information, for example, if an audit is unlikely to start and there's a reason, we will inform you as we go along. So at this stage, I wouldn't be able to say, but obviously that information will be given to you when we bring our progress against the plan during the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Matthew Evans, Chair.
Matthew?
Two questions, please, Joan. First one, actually, I think you've answered on behalf of Nigel. So I guess just to confirm my understanding, target's 80% again. So certainly I'd appreciate a view as we go through the year on which ones we don't think we're going to get to. I won't verge into comment territory. Second question, something more specific. Additional learning needs. I think it was the only one removed from last year that didn't make it back onto this year. It's top of the corporate risk register. Just interested in your perspective of why, I guess, to make it on this year's plan.
Yeah, thank you for the question. As far as additional learning needs is concerned, that was undertaken by Estin during 24-25. We read the report and it was quite substantial coverage. During our planning meetings, we met with the Director of Education. We discussed that. She was more than happy that covered the areas of concern. Well, there weren't many areas of concern, and she was happy that was done. And she felt there was better priority, more other areas that she felt were more priority from her. And when we did the risk assessment, we felt that our resource would be better suited to other areas in her directorate. But Andrew might like to add something there.
Thanks, Joan. And just to add to that, I don't think it's a control issue, an internal control issue with ALN. It's more about a funding and capacity issue. The numbers are increasing significantly in terms of ALN, and it's finding the financial resources to deal with that appropriately, as opposed to coming in from an internal audit perspective, ensuring that the internal control environment is appropriate to deliver that service. But we are in constant dialogue with the directors, because Joan and I attend SLT on a fairly regular basis.
Any other questions? Any comments? No? Okay, if we got the recommendation then that we approve the draft internal audit strategy Appendix A and the draft annual risk-based audit plan for 25-26 Appendix B. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Nigel. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Prothero, thank you very much. Anyone against? No, thank you. Item 15, which is the forward work programme.
Thank you, Chair. So agenda item 15 is the Forward Work Programme. It's a report that members of this committee are very familiar with, and it ensures that the committee are covering the range of responsibilities as per your terms of reference. The proposed agenda for the next meeting, which is scheduled for the 21st of July, is within the covering report, and committee is asked to endorse the schedule of items for the next meeting and confirm the list of people it would like to invite for each item if appropriate, and indicate whether there are any additional items. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Any questions on it? Councillor Hooper?
Thank you, Chair. Really pleased to see Capital City Region appear on the Forward Work Programme. Given the comments that have been made earlier today, I wonder whether February is too far away and we should be inviting them to address some of the concerns we've got earlier than that, if we can. And I think we made this point last year, I think it'd be appropriate to not only bring their equivalent Section 151 officer, but also the director of the city region in as well, if she was available.
Thank you for that. Matt, I'm just wondering whether we can make an approach to see whether we can get them in sooner rather than later, maybe for an October meeting.
So it's struggling to turn my mic on then. Yes, let me have a chat with their 151 officer, Liam, and try and work out an appropriate time to come during the sign-off process. We don't want to bring him too early and just find this sort of half a story, but equally I do understand committee's concern, and February does feel quite a long way off, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think apart from the accounts, I think we need to just have an update and hopefully the conclusion of their investigation in regards to the contractual issues they've got.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, anything else? Any other questions? Any comments from anyone?
Sorry, Chair, Nigel's got his hand up.
Nigel?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just a quick comment. I just wanted to say thank you to Gareth Davis for circulating the informal actions. I'm not quite sure where, I don't think it comes in the committee as such, but I think it should be recognised as part of this agenda item. So just wanted to say thank you for that. It's really useful to get that summary. So thanks, Gareth.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, Nigel. I think it actually should come after the minutes. If I know Gareth is stretched in regards to, obviously he's on his own doing quite a lot of this, but if we could get it after the minutes and it picks up then any outstanding actions, we could deal with it then. So a plea to Gareth, if possible, if you can achieve that.
I will look at that, Chair. Just obviously the Vale standard is that everything gets a covering report, so that may just make it a bit more long-winded. But I can definitely look at something, perhaps even on a quarterly basis, Chair. That shouldn't be a problem at our end.
Gareth, I hear what you say there, but not every report that comes to this committee has got a covering report. We have the report that goes to another committee, namely Cabinet or somewhere else.
Yeah, there's just on that paper trail, Chair. So yeah, that's all there is.
I think just a short A4 sheet, a couple of lines, I would hope.
Yeah, we can accommodate that, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, Mark, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, it did strike me when I saw the agenda a few days ago about the action log, because most committees, audit committees, GACs, etc., that I attend have that action log, you know, typically after the minutes, and naming who a very clear action and who's picking it up, which is either an officer, an internal auditor, or an external auditor, but it's very clearly set out.
Yeah.
Thanks. The ones I'm familiar with, there's no covering paper or anything like that. It's simply an action log.
It's a log.
It's a log.
Yeah.
As I said, Chair, there are standards for the Vale that we adhere to. So that's all I would say, and the monitoring officer would expect us to maintain those standards. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's okay, Gareth. You do what you need to do. So if we can get that. So I think that there are a couple of things. Obviously, the forward work programme, we've got the committee is asked to endorse the schedule of the next meeting, 21st July 25, and confirm the list of people it would like to invite for each item, if appropriate, indicate whether any additional information is required. I think there's a couple of things. I think there are those additional reports for the risk register in regards to the points that have made for some covering reports in regards to the risk analysis and the issue around the major regeneration projects, etc. So hopefully those reports can come forward. We can pick up the issue around seeing whether City Deal can come in October, provided obviously they've done their draft accounts by then. And not only the 151, whether the chief exec can come in as well. And I think that was the majority of the items picked up. So if someone's prepared to move that, we note and endorse the forward work programme with those additional items coming forward on the 21st July.
Yep, seconded by Councillor Hooper, Chair. Oh,
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Nigel.
Yeah, no.
Anyone against? No one against. Thank you very much. Item 16, any other items? There aren't any. Part 2, in regards to exempt or confidential items, there aren't any. Can I firstly thank all the councillors, the officers, colleagues from Audit Wales for their input and contribution this evening, and look forward to seeing you on the 21st of July. And unfortunately, I will be online still because I'll still be on holiday. So thank you very much, everyone, and good night.
Thank you. Good night.